trying to leak our information? Is you a prophet or is you for profit? Is you for yourself or for the nation? Oh, it's just a toxic logic. Why you keep fucking around? You're so nasty. Who you get wrong? You're so nasty. You's a lie, you's a lie, you's a right now. You's a lie, you's a lie. You should sit down. Oh, nasty. Is you trying to rid our education? Would you switch your race for the pay? Is you a Karen or is you just caring? Is you for yourself or for the nation? Well, it's just a toxic logic. Why you keep fucking around? You're so nasty. Oh, you get wrong. You're so nasty. You's a lie, you's a lie, you's a right now. You's a lie, you's a lie. You should sit down. Oh, nasty.
I see you coming down the street with tiki torches and hate speech. You're not a proud boy, you're just a fuck boy, drinking the Kool-Aid of a mad on kid. Another kid rock with all the hate talk, murder, shake, the scope of Christ and children top of Della Heights. Oh, you're just a racist piece of shit. Oh, you're just a racist piece of shit. You're just a racist piece of shit. Racist piece of shit.
got Fishbone, and our motto is, fuck racism and fuck you if you don't like it.
Hitler, you probably didn't even hate the Jews. That was just the meth making you crazy, dog.
Both of you, get back in the closet. You deserve a ass whooping. All of you, get back in the closet.
How
Go
much does it
yourself.
cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
They're evil. They are actively doing evil. So treat them like the evil that they are.
The time to start is now, right? The time to plant a tree is 10 years ago, and the second best time is now. Strikes are the most effective way to stop profits, get demands, and force policy changes. If you can shut down profit, you can make any politician do anything.
It's time to stop pretending otherwise. It's time to be ruthless, and time to afford them the same amount of grace that they give to their Palestinian victims, because they are only going to get more and more ruthless with their victims if you don't.
Mic check, 1, 2. Good afternoon. Or morning, whatever time it is where you're at. We're going to start with headlines and then go into more specific stories. I should really reconfigure this video here. I'm way too zoomed in. Whatever, that'll have to do. Got it flipped like a mirror, that's how I like it. Yeah, while all eyes were on the flotilla, the killing in Gaza did not stop. So the ceasefire talks are happening in Egypt indirectly. We'll touch on the ICE raids in Chicago, but let's start with headlines.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Narmeen Sheikh. Negotiations are set to begin in Egypt today after Hamas and Israel agreed to parts of President Trump's 20-point plan for a Gaza ceasefire. On Friday, Trump wrote on Truth Social, quote, "Israel must immediately stop the bombing of Gaza so that we can get the hostages out safely and quickly." Trump made the comment after Hamas issued a response to Trump's plan without accepting all the conditions. The deal calls for a swap of all remaining hostages in Gaza for Palestinian prisoners held in Israel, as well as an eventual Israeli military withdrawal from Gaza. But major questions remain over what both Israel and Hamas will agree to. Despite Trump's call for Israel to stop bombing Gaza, the death toll continues to rise. On Sunday, Israeli forces killed at least 24 Palestinians. Another 7 have been killed so far today. Displaced Palestinians in Gaza City expressed hope that a deal to end the 2-year war could be reached.
We urge the negotiators, we urge the United States President Donald Trump, even the State of Israel, the State of Palestine, all states of the world and the Arab states, to end this suffering we are living in completely, and to start the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. We are displaced in the streets. We are living in the streets. Women are humiliated, our children are humiliated, there are no schools, there is no life.
In Israel, tens of thousands rallied in Tel Aviv on Saturday to support a deal to free the hostages. On Sunday, hostage families set up a protest tent outside the home of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. For the second time in 2 days, a Trump-appointed federal judge in Oregon has blocked the president from sending National Guard troops to the state, saying his claims about unrest in Portland were, quote, untethered to facts. In a ruling on Sunday night, Judge Karen Immergut blocked Trump from sending the California National Guard to Portland. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek praised the ruling, saying, quote, "This is not just about Oregon or a handful of states anymore. It's about the integrity of our democracy." White House advisor Stephen Miller has accused the judge of engaging in a legal insurrection by blocking the deployment of the National Guard. Miller's comment comes as the White House considers a plan to send the Army's 82nd Airborne Division to Portland. New court filings show the Trump administration plans to send hundreds of National Guard troops from Illinois and Texas to Chicago. On Sunday, Governor J.B. Pritzker said, quote, "We must now start calling this what it is, Trump's invasion." This comes as federal immigration agents expand their violent crackdown in Chicago amid growing protests. On Saturday, federal agents shot a woman in Chicago, allegedly after a group of cars boxed in patrolling officers. The woman is now facing numerous charges. Chicago Alderman Byron Siccho Lopez denounced the federal response.
In Brighton Park in Chicago, on 39th and Kedzie was a shooting earlier, a nice involved shooting. We want to demand an investigation. They are escalating violence. They are escalating violence in the city. This is not making anyone safer. These raids, and you saw that the raids that just did a few days ago, they were innocent people. They have not shown the need to go and terrorize families in the middle of the night, locking kids, getting people naked in the middle of the street. Is that public safety? Is this public safety ended up with a shooting? Someone being chased and out wrecked in a few blocks away from here? This is not keeping nobody safe. And they know that.
The government shutdown has entered its 6th day. President Trump is using the shutdown to withhold federal funding from Democratic-led cities and states. Russell Vought, the White House budget director, announced that the administration would pause $2.1 billion in funding for Chicago's infrastructure projects, writing on social media that the move is to, quote, "ensure funding is not flowing via race-based contracting." It follows a similar announcement last week when the administration halted $18 billion in infrastructure funding for New York. The Washington Post is reporting that the Trump administration is working on a plan to change age requirements for Americans to qualify for Social Security disability payments by raising the qualifying age to 60 or eliminating age as a factor entirely. The Post cited a paper showing that 750,000 fewer people would receive benefits in the next decade if the proposed rule change goes into effect. U.S. forces have bombed another boat off the coast of Venezuela, killing 4 people. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth claimed the boat was transporting drugs, but offered no evidence. President Trump recently declared the U.S. to be in an armed conflict with drug cartels in a move to give the president extraordinary power to launch attacks in Latin America. On Sunday, Trump spoke at a celebration of the Navy's 250th anniversary and threatened to begin launching attacks on land.
Well, they're not coming in by sea anymore, so now we'll have to start looking about the land because they'll be forced to go by land. And let me tell you right now, that's not going to work out well for them either.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro denounced the U.S. attacks in Latin America.
Why do they fire missiles? That's called murder. And it's the murder of young people who should have other opportunities, which we must give them.
Ukraine says Russia fired more than 50 missiles and nearly 500 drones in an overnight attack on Sunday, killing 5 people, including a 15-year-old girl. The attacks also left tens of thousands of Ukrainians without power. Meanwhile, Poland deployed fighter jets to secure its airspace. France's Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, resigned on Monday, less than a day after forming his cabinet and less than a month since being appointed as Prime Minister. That leaves French President Emmanuel Macron to decide on whether to dissolve Parliament and call another snap election. It comes as tens of thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in recent demonstrations led by trade unions, denouncing budget cuts. Israel is facing accusations of mistreating international activists who were detained when Israeli forces raided.
Someone was blind in the crowd? Macron, you even got the blind coming out against you. Jesus.
Did a flotilla of Gaza-bound aid boats, detaining over 435 passengers last week. Several activists who've been deported say they witnessed Israeli officers mistreating the Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg. One Turkish journalist who was deported from Israel said Israeli...
We'll get to that later on in the broadcast, but that video of Ben Gvir taunting the activists is so fucking gross, with the Israeli flag in the background posted up for the camera in the background.
Passengers last week. Several activists who've been deported say they witnessed Israeli officers mistreating...
I mean, where can you point a camera in Israel without seeing a flag, you know?
The Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg. One Turkish journalist who was deported from Israel said Israeli authorities, quote, dragged little Greta by her hair before our eyes, beat her and forced her to kiss the Israeli flag. They did everything imaginable to her as a warning to others. Thunberg is expected to be deported today. On Sunday, the Spanish activist Rafael Borrego spoke in Madrid after being deported from Israel.
At any time that any of us called a police officer in prison, we risked that 7 or more fully armed people would enter our cell, as they did on mine, pointing...
You notice that they're in different clothes? You don't see that when people are released from ICE detention. They're in the same clothes that they went in. That's a sign of abuse. That's a sign of mistreatment. You should be given other clothes and have the ability to shower and stuff.
Us with weapons at our heads, with dogs ready to attack us, and being...
That means we are treating... I mean, they're activists. They're going to be treated better than Palestinians, but Israel is treating their captives better than we treat people that we put in ICE detention. So don't think that America is any less Nazi than Israel. Two different flavors of the same kind of Nazism.
Dragged on the floor. This happened on a daily basis. They didn't let us speak to our lawyers at any time. They impeded consular assistance. They didn't let us call our families. All of this under a very humiliating treatment.
In other flotilla news, CBS is reporting that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directly approved military operations on 2 vessels from the flotilla while it was in Tunisia last month. 2 U.S. intelligence officials told CBS that Israeli forces launched drones from a submarine and dropped incendiary devices on the boats. Hundreds of thousands of protesters took part in pro-Palestinian rallies this weekend across the globe. In the Netherlands, about 250,000 marched in Amsterdam. Major protests were also held in Istanbul, Paris, Rabat, and other cities. In London, police arrested over 440...
So when I think of modern pirates, I think of Somali pirates trying to overcome a poverty-stricken background and the state of Israel.
Protesters for supporting Palestine Action, a group that was designated as a terror organization in July, making it illegal for anyone to show support for the group. This is the longtime British peace activist Angie Zelter.
I'm disgusted by the police, actually. They shouldn't be arresting a
There's so many people holding signs like that that say, I support Palestine Action. That's crazy.
Violent protesters here. We have a right to protest, and Palestine Action is not a violent organisation. It should never have been prescribed in the first place. They should be arresting the real criminals, okay, which is the people colluding with the genocide, which includes our government, unfortunately.
Here in the United States, about
This has been going on for months, by the way. They have not stopped this ongoing protest in the UK. It's wild.
100 activists blocked the main...
So many old people getting arrested just day in and day out.
Entrance to Port Elizabeth in New Jersey to protest the shipment of weapons to Israel. This is Jim Keedy, Director of Education.
And what does that do? You're either incarcerating an old person or you're giving them a court date to where they'll just go back out and hold up a sign again, you know?
Advocating for justice.
As you can see, this is a peaceful, non-violent demonstration. Yes, it is inconvenient for the people that are in these trucks and in the cars that are in front of me here. But as you can see, there are people that are just exercising their First Amendment rights to free speech. This slaughter, this genocide needs to stop. Our elected officials have done nothing to stop the flow of weapons to Israel. In fact, they've increased the weapons flow over the course of 2 years. They have given Israel billions of dollars of our tax money, and they have given them the moral and political cover to commit a genocide that we are seeing in high def on our phones every day.
The New York Times is reporting that President Trump is expected to lower refugee admissions to 7,500 people, a sharp reduction from the cap of 125,000 set up by the Biden administration last year. The new limit would support mostly white South Africans. Speaking to the Times, Mark Hetfield, the president of HIAS, a Jewish resettlement agency, said, quote, such a low refugee ceiling would break America's promise to people who played by the rules. Trump isn't just putting the Afrikaners to the front of the line, he's kicking years-long waiting refugees out of the line. Journalist Mario Guevara was deported to El Salvador on Friday after being detained by ICE for over 100 days. Guevara, who founded the outlet MG News, where he received awards for his coverage on immigration, has lived in the United States for nearly 20 years. He was arrested and jailed in June for live streaming an anti-Trump No Kings demonstration near Atlanta. Guevara spoke to reporters in El Salvador.
Maybe I made a mistake, but I did it for my family. I did it because I held on, because I had hope. I trusted in the United States justice system, because it had always been fair to me. I trusted the United States, right? One of its slogans in the pledge to the flag is liberty and justice for all. That no longer exists. Liberty and justice is only for American citizens. Journalists who are American citizens can do the work. A journalist like me, who is an immigrant with a work.
Not even for American citizens. We've had American citizens sent to Saycott and deported, locked up. Why? Because they are brown presenting.
Work permit? No, that's the new reality in the United States.
Imagine having this much charity still for your country after they've blatantly wronged you like this.
And authorities in South Carolina have launched an investigation after the home of South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein was set on fire. The judge was not home at the time, but 3 members of her family have been hospitalized, including her husband, a former Democratic state senator. Judge Goodstein had received death threats recently after President Trump's Assistant Attorney General, Harmeet Dillon, criticized the judge for temporarily blocking the state's election commission from releasing its voter files to the Department of Justice. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Nermeen Sheikh in New York, joined by Amy Goodman in San Francisco. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Nermeen, and hello to all our viewers, listeners, and readers around the country and around the world. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on...
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Nermeen Sheikh in New York with Amy Goodman in San Francisco.
Global condemnation is mounting as hundreds of international activists remain in Israeli prison, days after Israel's military raided and captured dozens of boats on the global Samud flotilla. The flotilla set sail in late August in an effort to break Israel's siege and starvation campaign in Gaza. Reuters reports at least 170 flotilla activists of the more than 450 arrested have been deported from Israel. Many have described torture and mistreatment in Israeli custody. The Swedish activist Greta Thunberg, who is reportedly being deported from Israel to Greece today, told Swedish officials she was being held in a cell infested with bedbugs and deprived of food and water. The Turkish activist Ersin Çelik told Anadolu news agency, that Greta had been, quote, dragged by her hair before our eyes, beat her and forced her to kiss the Israeli flag. They did everything imaginable to her as a warning to others, he said. This is Spanish activist Nestor Prieto, as he arrived back in Madrid Sunday with a group of activists deported from Israel.
A 75-year-old colleague was asking for insulin for 3 days. An officer said they didn't have medicine for animals in jail. Another Mexican colleague was asking for medicines for a cardiac disease, saying it was urgent, and they said it would only be urgent when her heart stopped.
The flotilla members were greeted with cheers at the Madrid airport. This is the Dutch-Palestinian activist Marco Tesh, who was also deported to Spain over the weekend.
They are not giving any medical support to the prisoners there. The people has been kidnapped from international water, and Israel is mistreating everyone, but especially the people with Arabic or Muslim background. Me, myself, I'm from Palestinian origin. I was mistreated the first day. I was almost like I couldn't breathe anymore because they got something on my face, and they tied my hand to the back.
This comes as CBS News reports Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directly approved Israeli military strikes on at least 2 flotilla vessels last month, when, according to 2 U.S. intelligence officials speaking anonymously, Israeli forces launched drones from a submarine and dropped incendiary devices onto the boats that were anchored off Tunisia's port of Sidi Bouzid, prompting a fire.
Drones from a submarine,
experts have denounced Israel's attacks on the flotilla and its civilian passengers as a war crime. For more, we go to London, where we're joined by Kieran Andreou, a British-Palestinian journalist with Novara Media who was on board the global Samud flotilla to Gaza. He was live streaming on the sailing boat Adara when the Israeli military intercepted it. He was just released from Israeli prison and deported over the weekend. Kieran, welcome to Democracy Now! So explain what happened, your experience as joining the flotilla, and then what happened subsequently.
Well, thank you for having me on. The flotilla experience itself was long and arduous. It went on more than twice as long than anybody had initially expected. But one thing really held us together and really drove us forward. However many logistical setbacks, logistical challenges, or drone attacks. Interesting to hear that Netanyahu has now admitted to the Tunisian drone attacks, by the way. That's the first time I'm hearing that. But through all of these trials and tribulations, the thing that really held us together was our love for Palestine, for the people of Gaza, and the bonds of loyalty and solidarity that we developed among ourselves on the boats. So though the journey on the flotilla across the Mediterranean from Barcelona to Gaza was long and episodic, those things drove us forward. Once we got there, everything changed, and I can talk you through my experience now. So initially, the interception of the IDF on the boats was what we would call a soft interception, which is to say they didn't use the violence that would have been available to them had they wanted to. They were all carrying machine guns and so on, but nobody was physically hurt, nobody's physical integrity was compromised on the boats, as far as I'm aware at least, for the interception. Nonetheless, it's important to stress that even if it's a soft or light interception, it's still illegal. It's still illegal to kidnap us in international waters and take us to the port of Ashdod in Israel, because we were 70 nautical miles, in my case, in international waters. Nonetheless, when we got to Israel, when we got to Ashdod, that's when the violence really began. So I was dragged out of the boat by my collar and chucked on the floor, cut my knee open. And the first thing I saw as we were dragged out, or I was dragged out, was 300 people kneeling with their hands behind their backs, facing straight down at the concrete outside of the port of Ashdod. They were forced to stay there, in some cases, for 6 hours. I was forced to stay there for about 2.5 hours, on my knees with my hands behind my back, before I was processed in the Ashdod centre and sent to the prison in the Negev desert, which we can get onto the conditions of in a moment. At that point, Itamar Ben Gvir was brought out so that he could parade in front of us. And I think the assumption, and I want to emphasise this, I think the assumption was that we would be cowed, that we would be fearful, that we would stay quiet. And actually, that's not what happened. And what happened sets the tone for what then carried on in the prison, which is that everybody, as soon as we saw Ben Gvir, 300 people on their knees, in fear, no doubt, started shouting, free Palestine, calling him a genocidaire and a baby killer, and so on. And he was really shocked. You could see that Ben Gvir was stunned by that. His people, the police, they were all stunned by it. They expected us to be cowed, and we weren't. Then I was processed through the centre. It took about 3 or 4 hours, and they said to me, no immediate deportation. Even if you want to be immediately deported, you're going to prison. So they bound our hands with cable ties, very tightly. In my case, not everybody had it as tight as me. In my case, I was genuinely concerned that my fingers were going to drop off after several hours of having my hands bound this tightly. And I was having to manoeuvre them as carefully as I could to try and get blood to my fingers over the 3 or 4 hours that I had this cable tie on my wrist. We were transported to a prison in the Negev desert. I only found out when I asked the British Consul General who came to visit us, where are we? He said, we're in the Negev desert. I had no idea until that point. We were transferred in a police bus. They pumped freezing cold air onto the bus while our hands were tied. It took 2 hours to get to the Negev desert, then they transferred us to the prison. And that's where I think this is where the really torturous conditions started to begin. We were tended to a cell. We were in cells without drinking water. For the whole time that I was there, which was 2 days, we weren't given any drinking water whatsoever. We had to drink out of a tap that was producing brown water. There was one toilet between 10 people, not in a good condition as you can imagine. No toilet paper initially. I had to beg after 24 hours with one guard who gave us toilet paper after my continuous interventions attempts. The most egregious thing of all, though, Amy, is that they were throwing people's medicine in the bin in front of them and laughing in their faces. And I'm not just talking about people who, like myself, need a medicine called propranolol, which is just a beta blocker to regulate heart rate. I can live without that for a few days, and indeed I was forced to. We're talking about people who are HIV positive and need their meds for that. We're talking about 75-year-old men and women who need medicine for their heart conditions, who may drop dead at any moment if they don't have that medicine. We're talking about a good friend of mine who's still there, I believe, Tommy Marcus, he's still incarcerated, who needs his medicine to regulate potential seizures. And if he doesn't get his medicine, he could keel over and die at any moment. We told them this over and over and over again. We pleaded with them from our cells, because we didn't get yard time, by the way. We were kept in our cells all the time that we were there, except to be transferred to see the British, in my case, the British consulate. We told them, people are going to die. The individuals pleaded with them. I need my medication for this. It's my human right. Where are our lawyers, etc., etc. They laughed in our faces. They spat on the floor. They did not care. Just a couple of other brief horror stories for you. The food we were given was infested with insects. I mean, it was almost inedible anyway, but it was also infested with insects for good measure. Several people saw women have their hijabs ripped off their heads violently by Israeli police officers and then forced to crawl without their hijabs on in front of other men, Israeli police officers. One of the women that I was deported with told me what was going on, because men and women were separated, by the way, what was going on in the women's quarters. One young woman has a problem where her blood doesn't clot, and she was on her period. They refused her any sanitary towels and any medication to handle her condition. And she's anemic, so she almost died, bleeding out in her prison cell, with her comrades around her, unable to do anything to help her, because no matter what they said to the Israeli prison guards, women prison guards in this case, no matter how they pleaded with them, they were totally and utterly insensitive to the possibilities of any of us dying.
Kieran, I want to thank you for this very descriptive report. And Kieran Andrew is a Palestinian-British journalist for Novara Media. He's been speaking to us from London, where he was just deported to. In this latest news, Reuters is reporting that Swedish activist Greta Thunberg has been released from Israeli prison, will be deported to Greece, according to Israel's foreign minister. There was a tweet that just came in from the Samud flotilla, and it said that well over 100 activists are being deported to both Greece and Slovakia. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can... I'm Amy Goodman with Nermin Sheikh.
In the days after President Donald Trump took office in 2017, during his first term, George Orwell's 1984 became a bestseller in the US. The classic 1949 dystopian work introduced the world to the terms Big Brother, Thought Police, Newspeak, and Doublethink. Orwell wrote 1984 as a cautionary tale more than 75 years ago, and some say it has even greater relevance now in Trump's second term and around the world. Now, a new film by the Oscar-nominated director Raoul Peck is opening Friday in theaters that explores the life and legacy of George Orwell. It's called Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. This is the trailer.
When I sit down to write a book, I write it because there is some lie that I want to expose.
Again, how many fingers?
My starting point is always a feeling of injustice. The very concept of objective truth is fading out of this world.
I'm going to set down what I cannot say aloud to anyone.
This prospect frightens me much more than bombs. The words democracy, freedom, justice have each of them several different meanings, which cannot be reconciled with one another. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful.
The love in the air, I've never seen anything like it.
And murder respectable. Freedom is slavery. War is peace. Ignorance is strength. Totalitarianism, if not fought against, could triumph anywhere. Do you begin to see then what kind of world we are creating?
That's the trailer for the new film Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. And this is a clip that features the voices of President George W. Bush's Secretary of State, General Colin Powell, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. It begins with the words of Orwell as read in a 1956 British film adaptation of his novel 1984.
We are at war with the people of Eurasia, the vile and ruthless aggressors who have committed countless atrocities and who are guilty of every bestial crime a human being can commit. They waste our land, destroyed our factories, looted our homes, massacred our children, and raped our women.
When Iraq finally admitted having these weapons in 1995, the quantities were vast. Less than a teaspoon of dry anthrax, a little bit about this amount. This is just about...
This kind of thing happens everywhere, but it is clearly likelier to lead to outright falsification in societies where only one opinion is permissible at any given moment.
I've made the decision to conduct a special military operation. Its aim will be to protect those who have been persecuted in the Kiev region's genocide these past 8 years. Our goal, therefore, will be to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine.
The organized lying practiced by totalitarian states is not, as is sometimes claimed, a temporary expedient of the same nature as military deception. It is something integral to totalitarianism, something that would still continue even if concentration camps and secret police forces had ceased to be necessary. Totalitarianism demands, in fact, the continuous alteration of the past, and in the long run probably demands a disbelief in the very existence of objective truth.
Had we not engaged in...
I mean, we're seeing that with the alteration of museums and stuff that Trump is doing, you know?
Our special military operation, they would have attacked Russia. They, the Nazis, had long been preparing an attack.
How many fingers am I holding up, Winston? 4. And if Big Brother were to say not 4, but 5, then how many?
4.
How many fingers, Winston?
Stop it. Anything in 5. But
No, Winston. Winston, that is no use. You are lying. You still think you see 4.
No, but it's 5.
2 and 2 do not always make 4, Winston. Sometimes they make 5. Again, how many fingers am I holding up?
That's a clip from the new documentary Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. That last part is from a 1953 film adaptation of Orwell's novel 1984. For more, we are joined by Academy Award-winning director Alex Gibney, producer of Orwell 2 + 2 = 5, and by the film's director, Raoul Peck, the acclaimed Haitian filmmaker. His past films include Exterminate All the Brutes, I Am Not Your Negro, that's one of my favorite documentaries of all time, The Young Karl Marx, Lumumba, Death of a Prophet, and Haiti, The Silence of the Dogs. Raoul Peck served as Haiti's culture minister in the 1990s. We welcome you both back to Democracy Now! Raoul, talk about the origins of this film, why you decided to make this.
Well, Alex, it's better to answer that first question. You want to tell it?
Well, no, I got a call from a man who had assembled all the rights to Orwell's works and wondered if I wanted to executive produce it. I said yes on one condition, if we can get Raoul Peck to direct it. And so I turned to Raoul, and luckily he answered my call and said yes. So that's how it started. But it also seemed like a film. I mean, it began some years ago. It was like 2 or 3 years ago we started on this project. It was relevant then, and we had no idea how relevant it was to become.
Yeah, and I remember when we started working on it, for me, Kamala Harris was going to be president. So, and despite that, I knew that this country and many other countries around the world needed Orwell to come back, and because he has been one of the incredibly analyzer of how totalitarian regime, but also any type of abuse of power function. You know, he teach us how to recognize the signs. And, you know, coming from Haiti, as a young man and young boy, I also recognize the signs. You know, the attack on the press, the attack on justice, the attack on academia, the attack on any institution that can be a bulwark against totalitarian. And we are living again and again, not only in the United States, but in many other countries, including in Europe, in Latin America, in Africa, the same playbook playing again and again.
So, Raoul, you've said in another interview, I don't make biographies. I choose a moment in the life of a character that allows me to tell the bigger story. For Orwell, I found that moment quite rapidly. So if you could elaborate on that. So Alex comes to you with the idea of this film, and what do you think of Orwell?
An idea to which I say yes immediately. I don't know why, but that happened. But you're not offered every day to be able to immerse yourself in the whole body of work of an author that you revere and that is important, like James Baldwin was important for me too. But I know that before plunging into it, I had to find the story. Indeed, I don't do biography. I try to find a story with a character, with emotions, with contradictions, and a story that allows you to see a film multiple times, not just for what is happening now, currently, but also that you can watch in 30 years and you will learn as much. So the story for me was Orwell in the last year of his life, where he's struggling to finish 1984, and he will finally finish it, but will die 4 months later, and he's only 49. So the drama of that, and the struggle to finish that, for an author, I thought would give me the fine line of the story and allows me to revisit all his body of work.
Writing through dealing with tuberculosis before he died, but for especially the younger generation, who he was, why he came to have this view, this warning to the world about totalitarianism, authoritarianism. Well,
because it's, people have thought, including myself, reading Orwell when I was young, always thought of him as a sort of dystopian and science fiction author. But in fact, he was writing about things that he went through in his life, being born in India. And that's why I use that photo of Orwell as a baby in the hand of a black nanny. And then he went to Myanmar today,
It'd be nice to reread Orwell to see how much of it was autobiographical,
Burma at the time, which was a British colony. And he went there as a 19-year-old as a soldier there, and he realized the price of colonialism. He was himself the bully. He was on the wrong side. And that experience, I think, shaped his whole thinking, and he wrote about it in a very candid and open way and self-critical way. And then the Spanish War, again, as a young man, he's in his 30s, to volunteer to fight with the Republic against the putschists, Franco, etc. So all those moments shaped his mind, and there is a phrase where he said, after the Spanish Civil War, I knew where I stand. And that was the turning point for him, and as well for the film to establish who he was, and his whole writing, saying that I want to write about politics and art together. It was never a contradiction for him.
And indeed, he said the decision not to make art about politics is itself a political decision. Which
and as I say, neutrality is also a political position. You can't be neutral. Neutral of what?
But you talked a little bit about his time in. He was born in India, but I think he was just a few months old when his mother brought him back.
Yeah, doing nothing is still doing something. Your inaction, your blindness, your deafness, it's political choice. And if it's not a choice, it's still a political statement.
To England, but then he spends, as you said, from 1922 to 27, 5 years working as a policeman at the time, British colonized Burma. And as a policeman, he says that he was part of the actual machinery of despotism, and as a result of which, another quote from the film, that he operates, quote, on a simple theory that the oppressed are always right and the oppressors wrong. A mistaken theory, but the direct result of being one of the oppressors yourself. So if you could talk about that, and then also we'll get into the extent to which, of course, this experience with colonialism, a direct one, as one of the colonizers, but then also the question of class. Throughout the film, he explains his own formation by his position, as he calls it, being lower upper middle class.
Yes. Well, the first part of the question, I had a very good friend, the writer Russell Banks, and we had that discussion many times. And he said the real story of racism in America can only be told by somebody who was a member of the Klan. And it's a little bit the same way. If you have been in the belly of the beast, you have learned how the beast think. You know all the instrument. You know how they function, etc. And that's what Orwell was able to do. He was doing things that he would come to regret. But he knew them intimately. And about the second part of your question, I forgot. It's about class. That's I was thinking recently about how every politician in this country is using permanently the middle class, as if it's like something. You have the middle class, and then you have the very rich and the very poor. And so every citizen wants to be in that middle class. But it's a way also to erase all class distinction, all the nuance of being in one or the other. It's to erasing the working class as well.
Let's go to a clip. Again, from your film, Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5.
I do not think one can assess a writer's motives without knowing something of his early development. His subject matter will be determined by the age he lives in. At least this is true in tumultuous revolutionary ages like our own. When I was not yet 20, I went to Burma in the Indian Imperial Police. In an outpost of empire like Burma, the class question appeared at first sight to have been shelved. Most of the white men in Burma were not of the type who in England would be called gentlemen. But they were white men, in contradistinction to the other and inferior class, the natives. In the free air of England, that kind of thing is not fully intelligible. In order to hate imperialism, you have got to be part of it. But it is not possible to be part of such a system without recognizing it as an unjustifiable tyranny. Even the thickest-skinned Anglo-Indian is aware of this. Every native face he sees in the street brings home to him his monstrous intrusion. But I was in the police, which is to say that I was part of the actual machinery of despotism.
So that's a clip from Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5, and there we hear about Orwell's experience with colonialism and how that shaped his ideological formation, so which Raoul just talked about. So Alex, I'd like you to talk a little bit about, you know, a comment that, an Orwell quote that's also in the film, the fact that leaders can claim that something that happened didn't happen, or that 2 and 2 is 5. This fact scares me more than bombs, and this is not a frivolous statement. So if you could elaborate on the significance of and the importance of this in our present moment.
Well, I think that what Orwell was talking about was the idea of authoritarian leaders' assault on common sense. In other words, what you instinctively know to be true is upended by the authoritarian leader, so that everything flows from him. Usually him, and that's what we're experiencing in this moment. We have a president who you can't even say that he's a liar, because he just invents things on the spot, but he expects them to be revered as true. 2 + 2 = 5, and that is the effective. Well, it's the slogan, but that's how he impresses us with his power. That he can make us rudder against our own common sense. That's the danger we must all, rise up against. That's the problem at this moment.
And also, he makes, the point that also you have in the film, Orwell saying, to be corrupted by totalitarianism, one does not have to live in a totalitarian country.
Right. And I think also, the other thing to remember, I think that's important here, is that what we're living through in this country is not unique. And it's kind of a playbook that authoritarian leaders go throughout the world. But also, one of the geniuses, one of the things that's great about Raoul's film is that there's a juxtaposition of present and past, and also country to country, and you can see these same patterns emerge over and over and over again. And it's a kind of a simple playbook to make us all believe that 2 + 2 = 5, or at least to assert that that's the Pledge of Allegiance, 2 + 2 = 5. But it's not unique to Donald Trump, and I think that it's one of the great triumphs of the film.
Raoul Pekin, you told Variety, we are in the hands of a bunch of crazy people who have an agenda totally written out in Project 2025, the same way that Hitler wrote Mein Kampf. And you also, just talking about Orwell saying, totalitarianism demands, in fact, the continuous alteration of the past, and in the long run probably demands a disbelief in the very existence of objective truth.
Well, exactly, and I think everybody remember when Ms. Conway came with the phrase "alternative facts," and everybody started laughing about that. But that was what we call the beginning of Newspeak, and where you're actually saying one thing and doing the contrary. The same when Netanyahu at the UN said Israel wants peace while they are bombarding Gaza. So the absurdity and the contradiction of this have invaded our lives. And I know, as again coming from Haiti, I remember as a young boy hearing Kennedy and other presidents talking about democracy. And at the same time, they were financing and supporting the dictatorship in my country, or in Congo, supporting Mobutu when we were there, and at the same time talking about peace, talking about the good thing that democracy was bringing. So that double language have always existed for the imperialist countries and colonialism. There is the talk, and there is the reality. Mm-hmm. And Orwell, if we can learn something from him, is that he wrote about the reality, not some dystopian future, and we can relate to that, and we can understand how this machine functions.
And so, Raoul, you mentioned Newspeak, and in the film you give several examples from the contemporary moment. Special military operation, which equals invasion of Ukraine; vocational training center, which equals concentration camp, a reference to the Uyghurs in China; legal use of force, police brutality; anti-Semitism 2024 equals weaponized term to silence critics of the Israeli military. Now, if you could talk about, in particular, because you do include it in the film, the proliferation of these terms through a totally new form, social media.
Absolutely, it multiplied that by the million, and we are being bombarded by so-called information which are absolutely not information, and there is no checking about that. And there is this sequence with Octavio Cortez as well, criticizing or asking Zuckerberg, what is his fact-checking department doing on Facebook? So it's such an enormous problem. Like Orwell tells us that at the moment where you cannot trust language anymore, you're not in a democracy.
Did you leave this film more hopeful or less?
Well, it's hopeful is not a word I can function with. For me, it's about what do you do once you see that something is not functioning.
Democracy now, more like democracy when, am I right? Democracy now, more like democracy then, am I right? Oh. Just kidding.
I think about...
Has America ever been a democracy?
Yes, well, that will be the responsibility of each one of us, wherever we are. Journalists, as well, politicians, but also the civil society. The response, like Orwell said, the 84% of Oceania, they are the one who has, or he calls them the pros. And they are the one who has to bring a response, like the civil rights movement. It was a coalition of very different people, very different movements, and they succeed in changing this country.
Well, I encourage everyone to see this film. It's at IFC, opening tomorrow night here in New York, and then moving on to Los Angeles and then to the rest of the country. Raoul Peck, director of Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. Alex Gibney produced the film. Thank you so much both for being with us. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And
Jeremy, while we have you, we did want to get an update on the Sumud flotilla. We do have here a video of an Italian journalist who was on board who talked about the treatment that many of the captives, including Greta Thunberg, suffered after they were taken captive by the Israelis. Let's take a listen to that. We'll get your reaction.
Greta Thunberg, a brave woman who is only 22 years old. She was humiliated and wrapped in an Israeli flag and exhibited like a trophy. I had the feeling of being in a really barbaric place, and I really hope that that this barbarism might be over soon.
So that was an update there from the Italian journalist. I know, Jeremy, as well, that one of your own journalists actually remains or was missing. I believe you don't have any update or status on that. So can you just give us your reaction as, literally somebody with a direct connection here to the flotilla?
Yeah, I mean, one of our editors, Alex Colston, was on one of the ships, and he was snatched along with the others by Israeli forces days ago. We got an initial update confirming that he had been taken to the port of Ashdod in Israel, and then he was, we were told he was moved to this prison where they're also holding figures from the Hamas resistance that have been taken by Israel. But the Israeli government has given us no updates whatsoever on Alex's status, and there are also no updates on the status of a lot of others. Yes, many of them have been released. They're coming out and they're describing bedbug-infested cells, forms of abuse and mistreatment. They were also subjected to a visit by Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Interior Security Minister of Israel, who ran around saying that they're all going to be treated like terrorists. The way that Israel treats Palestinians who it puts in its prisons is to beat them, degrade them, torture them, subject them to other forms of abuse. We've heard some very disturbing reports about how these flotilla activists were treated, but we remain deeply concerned about the fate of one of our editors, Alex Colston. And I just want to say at the end of the day that while all of us should be paying attention to how they're treating these international activists, the fact is that there are as many as 15,000 Palestinians, including women and children, that remain in these Israeli facilities. And Israel is an entity that subjects children to military tribunal systems and denies them access to lawyers. We've seen prisoners being killed extrajudicially inside of Israeli prisons. So while we should focus on the fact that our colleague Alex his status is unknown and many of these people seem to be subjected to abuse, what Palestinians have endured in these Israeli facilities is unconscionable, and the world really should be focusing on that as an issue as well. And I know many of the flotilla activists have made that point themselves.
Yeah, of course. And, to your point there, the peace deal from Trump actually contains a number of admissions, including, in the hostage exchange deal, they talk about, and all of the women and children are going to be released, which is, an admission that Israel is, in fact, holding children hostage in their prison system. And then also allowing the free flow of aid, which is another admission that Israel is not allowing the free flow of aid, which is something that they have denied vociferously.
Yeah, I mean, those are very important points, Crystal. And another thing in there is the formula is for each body of a deceased Israeli, they're going to hand over 15 bodies of Palestinians. Remember how Trump's been focusing on who holds dead bodies? Why do they have dead bodies there? Israel, for decades, has had a practice of holding the corpses of dead Palestinians in freezers or in graves marked only by numbers. They have hundreds of bodies of Palestinians, some that have been there for decades without returning them to their families. This is a matter of national policy in Israel. So, what we see happening is that every allegation that is made by Israel against Palestinians, Israel is doing that on an industrial scale. And there are some rather interesting assertions in Trump's plan that if you just peel the layer back a little bit, you recognize that even Trump realizes that what Israel is doing very much can be categorized as genocide and in some cases extrajudicial torture. You're talking about children being in prison, and it references that in this. It's an admission, even though it's just a technical detail. The fact that they put it in there, it means they have to be accountable for having that knowledge.
And Jeremy, we also had some reporting here, and people are calling it the Barry Weiss buzzer beater from CBS News about those initial attacks on the flotilla. Not that this will come as any sort of a surprise, but this is A10, guys. We can put this up on the screen. They did learn that Netanyahu himself directly approved those military operations against two of the flotilla vessels early last month. The two American intelligence officials briefed on the matter told CBS News Israeli forces on September 8th and 9th launched drones from a submarine, dropped incendiary devices onto those boats that were moored outside a Tunisian port. I know with Israel, we just these things happen, and it's just it's just what they do, sort of all sorts of insanity that Trump does that just, no other president could get away with. But just speak a little bit to how extraordinary this is, how wild it is, what rogue kind of lawless behavior this is from our great ally Israel.
Yeah, and remember that Israel also has a history of killing people on these flotillas, and this isn't new. I mean, this goes back in 2010. You had the Mavi Marmara, where Israeli special forces raided and they killed a number of international activists on a flotilla. And it's important to remember the context of this. Who are the people on the flotilla, and what are they doing? It includes lawmakers from countries around the world, former ministers in governments, journalists, medical workers, activists, and they're trying to break an illegal blockade to bring infant formula, to bring food, to bring other humanitarian goods. And Israel uses high-tech submarines to penetrate the waters of Tunisia, to launch a drone, to try to set the ships on fire, to try to prevent these people from going and breaking their illegal blockade so that their forced starvation campaign can continue on. This is the kind of entity that the world is dealing with. Most people's eyes are open right now, and they see clearly what Israel is, especially under Benjamin Netanyahu. And the question is whether Trump's interests are going to align with this massive shift in public perception of what Israel is. The real question is if Donald Trump's business and ego interests are going to align with what clearly is a world that wants Israel to stop committing genocide and stop acting as a pariah state on the world stage.
Very possible. We do have a bit of information here. Maybe we can add this in post-production. The Israeli Foreign Ministry has just released this 171 additional provocateurs from the Hamas Samud flotilla, including Greta Thunberg, were deported today from Israel to Greece and Slovakia. Deportees are citizens, and they list the various countries. They say, quote, all the legal rights of the participants in this PR stunt were and will continue to be fully upheld. The lies they are spreading are part of their pre-planned fake news campaign. So that fits largely what we've seen, Jeremy. I did note that they call it the Hamas Samud flotilla, but that's kind of what they've been saying from the beginning.
Yeah, and again, remember that this is accusation number one that Israel always makes against anyone that dares to be a doctor or a medical worker or an activist or a journalist. It's their Hamas. So, Israel has used that so much that it just is void of any meaning. But the fact is that Israel violently took custody of activists who were trying to break their illegal siege and is trying to cover it up by just bombarding the space with its own lies. It's a pattern we've seen for the past 2 years, in fact, for many decades.
All right. Well, we will continue to monitor the drop site reporter, Alex, and we hope for a safe return. So thank you very much for joining us, Jeremy. We appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.
Hey, if you like that.
for being with us and welcoming us back to Europe after our incarceration. We think it is a mistake to dwell on the conditions of our arrest and imprisonment in Israel. However, what we want to do right now, the day before the Israelis will use the 7th of October to lick their wounds, is to hand you over to Greta Thunberg to speak on all of our behalf about the Samud flotilla, what we aimed to do, and what we will continue to do to free Palestine. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free
Let me be very clear. There is a genocide going on in front of our eyes, on all our phones.
Silence! Silence! Silence!
Okay, let me be very clear. There is a genocide going on in front of our very eyes. A live-streamed genocide on all of our phones. No one has the privilege to say we are not aware of what is happening. No one in the future will be able to say we did not know. Under international law, states have a legal obligation to act to prevent and to stop a genocide from happening. That means ending complicity, applying real pressure, and ending arms transfers. We are not seeing that. We are not even seeing the bare minimum from our governments. Our international systems are betraying Palestinians. They are not even able to prevent the worst war crimes from happening. And I will never, ever comprehend how humans can be so evil that you would deliberately starve millions of people living trapped under an illegal siege as a continuation of decades and decades of suffocating oppression, apartheid, and occupation. Their legal obligation. Our governments are talking about ensuring human rights and the importance of getting humanitarian aid into Gaza while failing to do their part and while failing to even the bare minimum ensuring safety for this mission. This mission should not have to exist. And it is a shame that
Σταματήστε λίγο, παιδιά! Σταματήστε λίγο, σας παρακαλώ!
The global Samud flotilla was the biggest ever attempt to break Israel's illegal and inhumane siege by sea. And it is a story of global international solidarity, of people stepping up when our governments failed to do so, of people saying that my leaders, so-called leaders who are supposed to represent me, who continue to fuel a genocide, death and destruction, they do not represent me. And this is a last resort. That this mission has to exist, it's a shame. It is a shame. And I could talk for a very, very long time about our mistreatment and abuses in our imprisonment, trust me, but that is not the story. What happened here was that Israel, while continuing to worsen and escalate their genocide and mass destruction with genocidal intent, attempting to erase an entire population, an entire nation in front of our very eyes, they once again violated international law by preventing humanitarian aid from getting into Gaza while people are being starved. And we want to also emphasize that we do not only need humanitarian aid to enter Gaza, we need an end to the siege, we need an end to the occupation and the oppression. This action was challenging our extremely violent business as usual that is preventing these war crimes from happening. And that is what this story is about. We cannot take our eyes away from Gaza, from all the places of the world that are suffering, living on the forefronts of this business as usual systems. Congo, Sudan, Afghanistan, Gaza, and many, many more. What we are doing is the bare minimum. This genocide and other genocides are being enabled and fueled by our own governments, our institutions, our media, and companies. It is our responsibility to end that complicity. And I also... No, not heroes. No, we are doing the bare minimum. What we are doing is not in any way, no one has to come to the rescue of Palestinian people. What we are doing is hearing and acting upon their calls for people all over the world to take action and end our complicity, to use our privileges, our platforms, to take a stance against this that is in every way unjustifiable. Does anyone else? Oh, I'm good, thank you. Does anyone else want to? Sure.
Okay, so whatever we've been through for the past 6 days has, among other things, been torture, physical and mental abuse, but at the same time, all the things we could think of in our heads were the suffering of the Palestinian people, and what we suffered from was nothing in comparison to them. We do not want to focus on what we suffered, even though we have the negligence of our own governments not supporting us in any type of way, even though that we were kidnapped in international waters for bringing aid to a starving people.
I would like to say for Gaza, and despite of our government defeat, and despite of what you have supported during more than 1 month, Gaza will come back again. This is the first page, and we'll write other page, inshallah. Make sure of that.
We are ourselves and we are millions! We are thousands, we are millions! We are all Palestinians! We are thousands, we are millions! We are thousands, we are millions! We are all Palestinians! We are all Palestinians!
Well, I think Greta said everything that had to be said. I just want to add one thing, and it's for all of you people listening through the screens, listening through the radios, all the journalists that are reporting here, join the Palestinian movement. This is the first biggest trip of the flotilla, but there will be more. We will not stop until Palestine is free. Thank you.
Never stop until Palestine will be free.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Dougie, yes, come on! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Silent just
Last week on the radio, I called out the Italian Prime Minister for political cowardice. All our political leaders are cowards. They are afraid to call out the Zionist entity for what it is doing. They are complicit. Every single politician out there, every political leader is complicit in what's going on in Gaza. They sell arms, they let arms be transported through their countries, they buy in products, services from occupied Palestine. This has to cease. Every individual should put pressure on their own politicians, local, national, international, put pressure on them to cease the trade in anything from occupied Palestine.
It was worth checking out despite it being so chaotic. What is this? This will be the last thing, and then I'll call it.
Oh, hey. Oh, hello. Oh my God. Hey, hi. Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back to the show. We're out here. We out here in these streets like an off-brand Ladoodoo. What are the goddamn things called? What are those wretched, spooky, and to be frank, terrible things called? Let's take that again. We out here in these streets like an off-brand Lapoo-Poo. Ladookie. What is it? Cut all that.
Adam, what's your point?
Adam.
The future
Adam.
looks bright.
Yeah, shut up, Adam. It's in the song, man. Oh, praise God on high in heaven.
God bless you.
Oh, God bless you, because today we're looking at a show that I'm often want to watch. That's right, we're checking in with the PBD boys. My favorite boys.
Those are my favorite.
Pendejos. I just got to start off with this. When this came up, recommended to me, I was like, there it is. There it is. That's how you do it. That's how you do the thumbnail game. That's how you get your thumbnails looking weird. That is, you know, this is one of the Trump kids here. Eric. Which one is that? Is that the girl one? I can't remember. But the little, what are the little rays of light? What are the little rays of light? Did he open the briefcase from Pulp Fiction up there? That light up there, like, I don't know. I guess it was, he's from heaven. He's from heaven, or he's in heaven. He's a rosy-cheeked cherub from heaven.
Ripple, how do you feel about, you know, Ethereum? Where are you with the other three?
Know all of them extremely well. Know Brad very well at XRP, and you know he's done a great job. Know Ethereum very well. I'm one of the guys who was early on this year saying buy Ethereum as it's crashing, and Ethereum's come ripping back. I mean, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I'm a big fan of Ethereum.
Too, man.
Bitcoin is digital gold. Ethereum is definitely the oil by which all financial systems are going to run on.
Coin is a good one.
And they've done tremendously well. And I think, honestly,
I'm heavily invested in
cut your meat
coin. I forgot about this guy. Well, this is a big get. He came from heaven, according to the thumbnail. Okay, so anyway, this is a child of the president. And he's providing a lot of amazing insight here, but there's a part where he starts talking about crypto crap. And I was, something sparked in my brain. And I was like, oh, I remember a kind of interesting crypto story that's kind of related to PBD. I think it was one of the biggest crypto scams in the world. Who did that? I can't remember who did that. Oh, right. It was what's that stupid guy? What's the stupid guy's name? Javier. Garage Rock Hair Javier, people call him.
That's not nice.
That's not the nicest nickname, but it's also not the worst in many ways.
61% of people in Argentina say the country is going in the wrong direction under Milei's leadership. Milei has also shown himself to be corrupt. In August, a recording was leaked in which a member of Milei's legal team discussed how a private pharmaceutical company was paying bribes to officials in the Milei administration, including to his sister, Karina. She was accused of stealing $500,000
So last week, the Treasury Department announced a $20 billion bailout.
Actually, not that much.
Of the chainsaw-wielding Argentinian libertarian president, Javier Milei.
Many call him Haircut Boy. He's in Argentina, so they speak Spanish, so they call him
Chico de pelo. Chico de pelo.
Pendejo.
Trump and Milei have also both carried out similar corrupt schemes. Like the US president with his shady Trump coin.
Hey, take it back. That's a very valuable coin. It's called bye-bye coin, also known as
It's weird.
coin.
Milei scandalously promoted a meme coin rug pull that caused his own supporters to lose billions of dollars in what became the biggest ever crypto theft. The Trump administration is...
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh, yeah, man. This whole crypto, this stupid guy talking about all this crypto junk. This stupid guy is a child of the president. He's like, oh, this coin and that coin. Oh.
What does he collect these coins in a book or something?
Dumb. So he's got all his little coins that he's wandering around with. It reminded me of that Argentinian president. What's his name?
Chico de pelo. Chico de pelo.
Reminded me that he did like that giant crypto scam rug pull thing. Like national crypto scam. Now the United States government is like bailing Argentina out. Because it's a disaster there because that guy has a garage rock haircut and they made him president. Oh, he happens to be a moron with that hair? What?
Chico de pelo.
You're right. That is his name. Thank you.
De nada.
Okay.
Pendejo.
But anyway, why isn't PBD? Why aren't the PBD boys? Why aren't the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful PBD boys talking about this? This is a huge economic story. You know, Argentina, oh my God, they got to give them $100 bajillion so they don't go down the toilets. Because the president has garage rock hair. Because the president has garage rock hair. He thinks he's in the kinks or something. And apparently he's just doing a nonstop scams and stuff. Well, why is it? I thought PBD was in economics, business, money guy. Why not talk about this? Why no talk about this?
Why? Bad policies have consequences, so do good ones.
No,
Argentina scrapped its rent controls. Tom, I'm coming to you with this one here. Scrapped its rent controls. Now the market is thriving. This is a Wall Street Journal story. Wow. Argentina's removal of rent controls under President Javier Milei has triggered a rental market boom, and with Donuts Irish rental supply increasing over 170%.
And guess what? It's because Milei pulled socialist programs off the table and said, just like that, what was the famous afuera?
You know, Tom's also kind of a haircut boy.
Chico de pelo.
Sorry, guys, I need to issue a correction on that.
Otro chico de pelo.
There we go.
But this is a guy showing leadership. And by the way, you know what America's going to need 75 years from now?
Tom in jail.
We're going to need a Milei.
Goes to, or this from Argentina, he goes to World Economic Forum. He's invited.
Okay, so the Argentina president guy went to the, what was this, a year ago? He went to the World Economic Forum and they said, this is what they said. They said, now introducing
Chico de pelo.
And he goes and gives a message. Argentina's Javier Milei says the West is in danger in a fiery Davos speech.
With
if
that
you've
hair,
not seen the
he said
speech,
that?
it is
Whoa, PB. Okay, PB, we got to zip it for a second. My turn. With that hair, he said that? I said, okay, go ahead.
3 minutes. We're not going to play the whole 23 minutes for you.
Oh, man.
But I highly recommend...
We're here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution to the problems that afflict the citizens of the world. Rather, they are the root.
By the way, he goes flat out, calling out.
Flat out and calling out? Those are the two harshest outs. Oh my God, who did that a year ago?
Chico de pelo. Chico de pelo.
Chico de...
Bro, who did that a year ago?
We don't hear the two different languages. By the way, he goes flat out, calling out everybody for 23 minutes straight.
Better not.
Damn. To their faces.
I like Vinny.
I love that.
Like Vinny's like, damn. He was flat out calling out. He's giving a speech. Damn. Damn, with that haircut? Guess that's why they're not talking about this story. Hey, this guy, the garage rock hair guy who became president of Argentina, he's like ruining everything. it's like even more of a disaster. These guys were like way into that guy. Oh, this guy's out. Not only Adam probably has the best one. They all love this guy. They all love
Chico de pelo.
But Adams is the best, where he's like, this is a fight over civilization itself, man. We need more guys like that because it's all this crap.
Way into these days. What he's basically talking about is something that we're going to be prepared or have to be prepared to face in the next coming generations.
God bless you.
And that is what is called a clash of civilizations. And a clash of civilizations is not about countries. It's about ideas and it's about cultures. And what we're seeing is an East versus West culture clash. So on one hand, you have democracy, you have capitalism, you have freedoms, you have free markets, you have human rights, you have builders, you have creators, you have discussions, open expression. And on the other hand, you have what he called collective.
You have artisans, you have plumbers, you have craft.
So yeah.
Bro could just keep listing shit and just say that it's all capitalism. It's all the benefits of civilization. Electricity, running water.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's why they're not talking
all
about
that,
this too much, even though it's a huge story. Maybe even a story they should be pissed off about. They don't like the government doing all this spending, and now they're giving Argentina $20 billion. I guess so Garage Rock Hair Boy can get reelected or something, so the country doesn't completely fall apart. But yeah, really shocking stuff, man, that nobody could have predicted, especially these economy guys. Market money guys. Oh man, a guy with a Garage Rock hair who was jumping around and goofing around with Elon Musk. You know, he was doing crypto scams basically right away. Oh man, that guy caused a problem? So, wow. Okay. How could anybody know? Okay, hell yeah, man, my favorite show. How many views on this PBD? Ooh, 319K. 319.
Chico de pelo.
On this one.
Right.
I'm sure.
I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks for checking it out. Peace out. Free Palestine. Fuck Israel. Crush Zionism forever. Peace.
Where's your fucking badge, you pigs? We go hard for Palestine. We escalate for Palestine. We fight for Palestine. We give it everything we got. We do not work with the police. We do not point people out to the police. We do not lay hands on our comrades. When we go hard for our people, you stand out the way. If you ain't with it,